I think that the way sales is going to go with the invention of all of the AIs and people using systems to basically help replace the SDR, I think most individuals want to get into your system first, and they want to get their hands dirty. They want to see how it works. And then once they have questions, then I think you can have an actual demo to go and sell them. I think that applies to the SMB. I think that applies to mid-market. Where I don't think that applies is enterprise. So like, I think on the enterprise side, if you have somebody who's a big company, like hundreds of thousands of people, they know the problem they're trying to solve. And from there, they want a demo first, or they have an RFP first. I think you still need to go that route with those companies. I think you can let them in the product sooner, like let them play around. Almost we called it a sandbox 5 years or 10 years ago, right? Like now it's basically just a PLG model. The whole model of a cold call, where I'm calling you to be like, hey, you want to buy software today? You're like, no, I don't like that. That's not a problem I have right now.
Yeah.
But like starting a demo with like a deck and talking about the value you build, I think all of that is out the door, old way to do sales. I think today you got to look at like, ABC person has a problem, they're trying to solve it. So like they're going to click around, they're going to ask their friends. Influence marketing is important. Referrals is important. Case studies, long tail search stuff in Gmail where they can, or in Google where they can find like case studies, things like that, I think is like how you do sales. So by the time you hop on with the prospect, they already know what they're trying to solve.
To me, like effective pre-sales and technical sales in particular, but it goes for sales all up as well, in complex sales environments, really has to do with the proper preparation of your sales teams. And we found this to be true year after year, is that if we didn't have the right demo data, then a client really didn't believe what you had to say. You know, if you didn't provide the right demo environments for your technical sales teams to be able to build proper demos, then they were greatly challenged and the sales cycles were suboptimal. When people would be like, you know, oh, we don't need that special demo stuff. I'm like, yeah, we do. We do if you want revenue. Like if you just don't care about win-loss ratios, then no, let's not do it. But if you want to win, then we should do this.
You are an organization that is selling to enterprise, mid-market, and SMB, then you're going to have different ratios of solutions to sales, right? So at the enterprise level, I think an ideal ratio is 1-to-1, especially if we're taking up more of that buying journey. I think at mid-market, you can come down to 1-to-2, 1-to-3 to support. And then down in the SMB space, you can probably stretch to 1-to-6 because there are a lot more volume type transactions.
I think the days of large sales teams are over. I think everyone's thinking about scaling in a very smart way. So, you know, if teams are going to get large, how do we make sure that we're doing that in a sustainable way? What is the payoff for each rep? What does that efficiency look like? And then how do we augment them with tools? I think that's going to be a really important factor. The cost of sales and doing so in a really sustainable way is going to be key.
And I think in previous times where money was cheap, right, companies were able to invest in exactly the right solution for each use case. But now that the macroeconomic climate has changed and responsible growth is the North Star, companies are figuring out how to consolidate tools.
So you buy the point solution because they do something very well and they can go very deep. However, if you only adopt it at a surface level, then are you really missing out by using the platform version that doesn't go quite as deep? That is the question. And so if you are a practitioner and operator who feels very strongly about a point solution, you better make sure you fully adopt it. And you better make sure you bring in those deeper advantages that no one else can have, because if you don't use it, then you're no different than tacking on the free version that, you know, so-and-so would offer.
Some of the mistakes I made early on and some of the most challenging deals that I did was I didn't identify the economic buyer. And so when that alignment's not there, it can really prolong that sales cycle. And as everyone knows, time kills all deals. So I think to combat that, my advice again, based on experience, is that you can never spend too much time on discovery. Who are the economic buyers? Who are the end users? Who are going to be administrators of this particular product solution? When you understand, jokingly, who's who in the zoo, I think that then allows you to strategize how you approach each opportunity and each deal.
You have to put yourself in the place of the customer rather than focusing on your product, your company, and so on. And that's a truth, whether we're talking about marketing, whether we're talking about sales, whether we're talking about how to price a product. Too many tech companies are a little too enthralled with their own capabilities, and they don't take a customer view in. When you start to do that, and when you start to think of the range of people in your accounts, in your customers, the buyers, the users, all of those things, then it broadens your perspective on how you have to speak to them and how you have to reach them. As the makeup of buying teams has changed from being strictly IT to more line of business and functional plus IT, the way that they make decisions, the pace at which they make decisions, and the fact that those new participants in buying teams aren't experienced at buying technology, so that makes it rough. The ages are decreasing. So unlike myself, who's just getting older, buying teams are getting younger. And with that, they want to play with technology and they don't want to talk to salespeople, at least not right away. So
you cannot force PMF. I think that's, that I've learned the hard way is you typically, when you're building a product, you have very inside out view of the world. And when you take it to the market, you start basically kind of forcing your product without seeing is the market really needed. So one is you can't force it. It means that you have to have that mindset where you have certain thesis and you take it to market, and you're going to have to iterate on it. It's as simple as that, right? Don't force what you have into the market.
I don't believe that you can get a high performance team without culture. And there's different angles to culture. We were fortunate at ChargeBeat to build a sales culture where it wasn't salesperson against salesperson, though they were competing to be at the top, to be the top salesperson. They realized, and we drove this culture where it's not because one salesperson wins a deal that the other person loses a deal. It's not a zero-sum game between the sales team. And therefore, if we share our knowledge, if we have a good feedback loop, then and we have a culture of shared learning, at that point we can help everybody be better and grow the performance of the team overall.
I would highly suggest that anyone who is unwilling as a business leader to consider the well-being of people before the business is kind of got things off. You need a balance between these are our goals, our sales goals, what we have to accomplish to meet the business priorities. But also, if you in any way make people feel like they're simply a resource to you achieving your goals, especially if you're a corporate leader, and they will tire of that quickly.
Your people that you bring on board, no matter how big you are, you got to trust. So if you bring someone on that's head of marketing, head of success, head of sales, let them do their thing and get out of the way as a co-founder or as a, whatever you might be, as a CRO, as a C-level. Let them figure out what they need, and that's why you hire them in the first place. And
when we are thinking a lot about growth at any cost, growth at what cost, at times culture takes a backseat. But for us, I think thankfully, all of us in the founding team have been very aligned that, we should first get the culture right, and I think everything else will fall in place around that. So we've been holding on pretty strong to those cultural values, I feel, which automatically helps in some of the employee retention and the way we sell to customers. I'm just very proud of the fact that some of the really early sales folks that I've hired, who are again generalists like me, who probably knew nothing about sales or SaaS, are still with us, running pretty large geographies for us. So that kind of helps in more ways than one, right? I think it's not spoken often enough, I guess, when you're in that hyper growth phase, but I feel like that was a big factor.
number one is people in every business. It's that you just cannot go without having great people. And so I'm pretty maniacal on our talent and making sure that we have got the very best talent that we can have and that we're putting them in the right position.
This is my personal anecdote. For all of us who've been in enterprise tech for like 10, 20, 30 years, you'll realize that nobody ever cared about what you did. So when you went back home and you said, I'm building software for X or Y or Z, nobody truly cared, right? Because that's what enterprise tech is. Nobody knows how these softwares work. This is for the first time in your life that your kids, your neighbors, right, your friends, and of course your customers have all experienced the power of what AI can do, right? That was the ChatGPT moment. I call it the mass commercialization of enterprise tech.
Just as the industry continues to adopt AI, is everybody is going to want and need to put AI in. It opens up more complexity, and so the level of security and attention around that to make sure that your customers are safe, their data, their privacy is safe, is hugely important. So it's something that I don't have a silver bullet for, but I think across the industry it's going to be a big challenge because everybody needs to move to AI, but we need to make sure the level of security, privacy, all of those things are still met.
The challenge that is top of mind for me really is that we have sky high expectations of what AI is going to do for us. And I think they need to be tempered. But sometimes what happens is that, when your expectations are here and something performs here, even though it is much better than where you were initially, right? You're suddenly like, oh no, I'm comparing it here and, this is not living up to my expectations. And you're just going to, go in and, be very negative about it. And maybe you won't adopt it, or maybe you'll, dismiss it as just another hyped trend.
With all the early employees and employees who spend a lot of time, there's a lot of institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
So, a person who spent 5 years in the team versus a new person who's responding to an RFP questionnaire, you can very clearly see the difference in the kind of quality that we see, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the second area where we're experimenting quite a bit. How can we, jumpstart the adoption and learning curve of someone who's new to the organization, and how can we kind of standardize some of the best performing reps? How can we get that knowledge and democratize that?